just when you thought it was safe to go back in the reference. You like that? You like that, you little meta pervert? There is a lake. It's in the furthest northern reaches of Los Angeles, and you have to go through Santa Clarita to get there, but it's a lake nonetheless. It's just made out of morphine, which is what everyone in Santa Clarita is apparently into. But in this lake dwells something evil, which is why it has a name that if you rearrange the letters and take some out and put some new ones in, spell just that. Evil Elizabeth Lake. It's called Elizabeth Lake. Okay. Do you know about this? Do you know Elizabeth Lake?
I know Elizabeth Lake. I know that it's a thing. I've seen it on a map. I've never been there.
Okay, but so you don't know the legend of Elizabeth Lake?
I don't.
This is a pretty good story. I like this one. Prior to 1834, it was known as Laguna del Diablo.
Really?
Do you know what that means? You know Devil Lake?
The devil's name Elizabeth, by the way. This confirms it. It's canon, but retcon. We're retconning it.
We're deep faking the devil right now. So supposedly the name came in 1780 from Junipero Serra, who was something of a Diablo himself, something of an Elizabeth. As the story goes, a group of Spanish explorers were traveling around this area. They got stuck in mud around where Elizabeth Lake now is. Well,
Okay.
I don't want to mix too much of geological facts and legend, but they were there. Frustrated and utterly Spanish, he shouted that he would sell his soul to the devil in exchange for a new road to get out of the mess that they were in. And when you know it, pregunta and you shall recibir. El Diablo appears. The devil himself showed up at our humble Elizabeth Lake, and he took him up on that offer. A new road was made, but once it was, the explorer decided this probably wasn't worth it.
So, I was only passing through.
I could have just waited like 80 years and there would have been a new road, and I would have still had my soul.
I could have just never come back, which is what people in that era did.
Why don't I just carry the wagon? So he told the devil, the deal's off. This is stupid. I'm not giving you my soul. Surprisingly, the devil didn't just kill him right then and there, but instead he created Elizabeth Lake. The legend is that the devil created Elizabeth Lake, and inside of it he placed his favorite pet and warned that his pet would terrorize anybody who came near this lake. So that's the legend. The Spaniards, of course, didn't care and just left, not thinking of the trail of destruction they were leaving behind. But now there was a new lake in town, and it was filled with scary. And that's the story of Elizabeth Lake.
It's a great tale. Thank you so much. I'll get on to mine now.
Other stories say that the devil made the lake specifically for his favorite pet, or that he put the pet in there to guard it because deep inside of it there's a gateway to hell at the bottom of this lake, which could be since it's over the San Andreas Fault. So maybe there's some deep tube going somewhere to Elizabeth's house. But even earlier than the Spanish, this area apparently had a reputation of evil in the Keech native days also. I don't know the stories, but it was not it was not a friendly place to be.
They tended to live near water, except that water.
That's bad water.
That's bad water.
Whatever the origin, it's long been believed that this lake was both created by the devil and that something evil lurks inside of it. But these are just legends. Right?
Daniel, answer right now, please.
Please don't stop reading.
Don't stop reading.
It's like a game of Jumanji. If you don't finish the whole story, we live in it. That's what all the rest of the chumps I'm about to tell you about thought, that it's all just legends. Yeah. The first recorded incident happened in the 1830s when a guy named Don Pedro Carrillo decided to build a ranch on the shores of the lake because the soil around there was really fertile, because it's a lake. Things were going well for a while, but then one night a fire broke out that burned down every single part of his ranch, and he had no explanation for what could have started it and what could have made it that destructive. Like everything was gone. Then again, only dry wood was used for construction back then. So whatever.
Yeah.
Nice try, Elizabeth.
I'm gonna marinate my house in gasoline. I heard it's good for the environment.
They had so much gasoline in the 1830s. What else were they gonna do with it?
Yeah, what else? It was coming out of the ground probably. I don't know how gas works.
That's what the lake was originally made out of. He soon left the area, not giving too many details of why, other than saying conditions there made me prematurely old. That was the only explanation he wanted to give of why he left that area.
Prematurely old.
Like he had been through a lot.
Okay.
But what happened? This lake was but how old? This lake was a popular stop for people to rest on the trail to LA around this time. So around 1855, Americans started settling around the lake. And again, things were fine for a little bit, but then the strange things started happening. People would hear weird noises and screaming all night. And then they also started having these weird visions. Like everyone around there started seeing things, I guess. Then again, again, they started experiencing things that they refused to talk about, and they all left the area selling their homes either at a loss or just abandoning them altogether just to get away as quickly as possible. But we still don't know what's happening. The next group to move in was in 1883. It was a trio of Dons. Don Chico Lopez, Don Chico Vasquez, and Don Guillermo Mentiroso. Chico Mentiroso is the name of my law firm. Chico and Mentiroso.
Marx Brothers.
My favorite Marx brother twice, and then my favorite Spanish Marx brother. So two of these guys came from pretty notable families. Chico Lopez was the nephew of the guy who found gold in Placerita Canyon, which was the first time gold was discovered in California.
Okay, I told that. I don't know if people have heard this story, but I've told it literally every episode.
Yeah. It's the only place I go to these days. And then the Chico Vasquez, you might guess, was the brother of the notorious bandit who we also can't stop talking about, Tiburcio Vasquez. Wow. So these are two LA lore people. Tiburcio Vasquez even used a cave on the ranch property to hide out sometimes. So now this lake was renamed Laguna de Chico Lopez, which I don't know. They must have drawn straws to be like, which one?
Who likes it the most, though?
Yeah. We can't name it Laguna de Mentiroso. We can't go from Laguna del Diablo to Laguna de Mentiroso.
Also, like, can you just go to a lake and rename it?
Yeah, they bought the land.
Yeah. They bought the land.
Next person to own it, Laguna de Muerte. For several months, again, things were fine as they were living here. But then some of their livestock started going missing. And that was a problem, but not unheard of, because this area attracted a lot of grizzly bears around that time because there was water. But then a strange thing started happening at night. A giant shadow with wings would fly over their houses every single night. Then one day they heard a loud whistling coming from the lake and smelled this horrible smell. Got anything to say about a horrible smell?
I didn't know that you stopped by. Shadow with wings. I'm going to say it. Mothman.
Laguna de Mothombre?
Yeah, Laguna de Mothman.
So when they went over to investigate, they finally saw the thing that had been troubling people, the devil's favorite pet. They described it as being bigger than the biggest whale, but with wings and flippers for legs, which is kind of like a whale. So it was roaring and splashing in the lake, and it was churning the water into a froth. They took out their guns and shot at it, but the bullets seemed to bounce off of the skin, so of course they ran away. Chico Mentiroso, you think they're going at
What, are they monster hunters all of a sudden? I didn't realize.
They didn't bring their silver stakes or anything. The next day they put together a posse and went out looking for it, but they couldn't find it. But from then on, the sightings became more frequent of this monster. One night they saw it flying out of their horse stable and found that 10 of their horses were missing in one night.
Oh, jeez.
This was getting to be too much for the ranch hands, who started to quit one by one as the livestock slowly started to quit into the stomach of the devil's pet one by one. And pretty soon, Chico and Mentiroso, they were forced to sell the ranch and leave. Nobody can stay on this land for very long. The man they sold it to was Don Felipe Rivera in 1886, who embodied the spirit of LA real early on and got the idea, I can make money off of this monster. So it took like 3 people living there before someone's like, let's sell it.
Step right up.
Come on down to Chico and Mentiroso's family circus. His plan was to capture it and sell it to a circus.
Wow.
Supposedly he had already signed a contract with...
Folly of man. Folly of Kong. Haven't they watched King Kong?
No flash photography because it doesn't exist yet. Supposedly he had already signed a contract with the Sells Floto Circus, who also had Buffalo Bill Cody at the time. Oh, wow. So it was going to be, come see Buffalo Bill Cody and the Devil's Pet. They were going to pay him $25,000 in exchange for the Devil's Pet, which is in 1886.
Astounding.
You could buy the devil for that. You could buy all the souls the devil is collecting.
The devil comes for a deal. I'm like, but I have more money than you. I don't understand.
How about I just pay you to build a road? So Rivera went hunting around the lake for it, and he found it sleeping on the shore of the lake. The way he describes it, it was 45 feet long, a body as big as 4 elephants. It had 6 legs, big wings, and the head of a bulldog.
Okay.
I can't even picture
it. In my head, I see like the drawing where you do, it's like one hat, like the pages flip.
Yeah.
Like it cut into 3s, and then like a bulldog, a whale, but it's got wings.
I was like, wow, this sounds horrifying. Oh, it's got the head of a bulldog. That's pretty cute.
I'd probably get along with it. Even though every bulldog scares the crap out of me, I probably love it. It's probably lovable.
I'm scared of most bulldogs, not this one. So he sees it. He sees it on the lake. Yeah. When he got near it, though, it woke up and it started swimming into the water to get away. So he shot at it, but again, the bullets just bounced off of it. Right. He said when the bullets hit it, it rang off of it like armor, like a suit of armor, like ding.
Yeah. Ding. ding, ding, like shooting a submarine. Was it just a submarine and they never seen it before?
Oh no. This is the Japanese were attacking early. So it's like pinging off of them, and it actually flattened the bullets. Like he saw the shells were. Yeah. I don't know if he ever made a second attempt to catch it for the circus, but I do know he didn't catch it. So that same year in 1886, on July 15th, according to an LA Times article, a guy named Peter B. Simpson was traveling from Nevada to Santa Barbara with his wife and 3 kids. He stopped at the lake for the night. It was almost a full moon that night, but he was woken up in the middle of the night because of a loud hissing and roaring he heard coming from the lake. So there's a pattern we're seeing from all these accounts. Then he started smelling a foul odor coming from the lake. Guess what? It wasn't me this time.
Like sulfur?
That kind of sounds believable, but there's not volcanic activity. It's just the San Andreas Fault, but just like a horrible smell.
Right.
I don't know. They can't capture smell in history.
They're cutting up the streets in Frogtown right now, and it smells awful around there. And I'm like, I wonder if just like
Burbank smells like that all the time, so I'm not really that surprised.
Oh, but Burbank's so magical, though. It's so magical.
So magical. Just close your nose.
Just don't follow your nose.
It's the motto of Burbank. Don't follow your nose. Be home by sundown. He started smelling a foul odor, like I said, which he said the odor was so thick it actually manifested as like a mist that floated over the whole area.
Yeah.
Is that what Frogtown is like? I don't know.
Big fog.
So he grabbed his Winchester and ran over.
I'm gonna shoot the smell.
Those other people had pistols. I got a Winchester, the gun that defeated the devil. So he ran over to make sure his cows were okay, but all he saw was that there was a black cloud over the lake and the water was boiling. So he didn't know what to make of this, so he just went back to bed, but was woken up again by absurdly strong winds. Like he first thought there was a cyclone hitting them. It was so powerful. Then all of a sudden things went quiet, and then the wagon they were sleeping in got lifted off the ground and dropped 20 feet away. Jesus. The cows started stampeding, and there was a dark figure flying through the air. And then he heard this commotion off in the distance that he said sounded like 50 battering rams trying to get into a fortress. So he went to investigate, and this is how he described the devil's pet when he saw it. 30 feet long, a warm reddish color with a shaggy mane on the neck, and a long snout, sharp yellow teeth, a long barbed tail. Oh, my kidney stones are acting up.
Oh, God, it's activated.
My doctor told me not to talk about long barbed tails.
Cryptids.
So it had bat-like wings, long legs, and 2 giant eyes that gleamed like fire. So that's what it looked like to him. The noise was because this crashing noise, it was attacking a herd of antelope.
Oh, geez.
So they were all kind of like crashing into each other with their horns. Of course, he shot at it again. But again, the bullet bounced off, and then the monster flew off with an antelope in its mouth and splashed back down into the lake. The next morning, he went to the scene of the incident to make sure, see if it actually happened. Like, was this some sort of dream from the 1800s?
Did I eat a weird cactus?
Maybe I shouldn't have drank that brackish water from Nevada.
They told me not to lick any toads when I get to California, and I did.
Sure enough. How can you resist? He found on the ground scales that must have been shot off the monster. They were round, red, and the size of dinner plates. He then packed up his stuff and headed west and tried to pretend that never happened. The next guy who moved here was a big figure in LA history, and when I say big, I mostly mean literally. A guy named Miguel Leonis. You know from the Leonis from the Leonis Adobe in Calabasas.
Yeah. Okay.
Miguel Leonis, they called him the King of Calabasas. Laguna de Calabasas, they called him. And he owned a lot of land in the area, but what distinguished him was that he was huge. He was from the Basque region of Europe, so his other nickname was El Basque Grande because he was 6'4" and had a reputation for being tough as the skin of his beloved Calabasas is.
Big, tall, not big, wide.
Big, tall. Big, but also burly.
Like bulky, yeah.
God help you if you were a squatter on his land, because he would deal with you violently. Like, that's how he would get squatters off of his land. And when he bought this ranch next to Elizabeth Lake, he found himself facing the biggest squatter he's ever seen, the devil's pet. The first few months of
You gotta pay rent!
I've not paid for all that water. So the first few months of this time there were fine, but then, as it always went, his livestock started getting eaten by something. I wonder what.
I like that the monster's like, I'll give him a little time to settle in, and then I'll start eating his livestock.
I think he'd be okay with this.
Seems like a nice guy.
I'll be a good neighbor. He's new to the neighborhood.
A week or two.
So he knew about the monster and wasn't going to put up with it. So one night he hid in the shadows by the river waiting for the devil's pet to reveal itself. And finally, the monster that Leonis described as griffin-like came out of the water, and Leonis, El Basque Grande, charged at
Oh
it.
my
He jumped at it immediately. He shot it repeatedly, but as we know, bullets just bounced off. So
Yeah.
instead, he ran up to it, smashed the butt of his rifle into its nose, and punched it in the right eye.
I'm stronger than bullets.
My fist can hit stronger than any sort of bullet from the 1800s. So the monster was so shocked that it was being attacked, not least of all by a man from the Basque country, that it ran away back into the lake and was never seen again. Ever since this encounter, Elizabeth Lake has been a safe and quiet place, but the question remains, what the hell was going on in Elizabeth Lake? Like, what happened? It's easy to brush it off as some tall tale or something, but why was this place frowned upon by the natives, and why, in a place with such fertile soil, did so many people refuse to live here for so long? Horace Bell even wrote about how weird it was that nobody would live there in his 1918 book On the Old West Coast. So it was like everyone knew, like, don't go to this area. Why? Some said it was just a California condor, which maybe, but those only have a wingspan of like 9.5 feet. And the description...
How do you see something that's almost 45 feet long, like probably a condor? Like, what? That's what they do that with Mothman all the time. We're like, you probably saw an owl. Like, no, I saw a man with wings.
And he had red eyes. He was talking to me about what's about to happen. I don't think it was an owl.
Directions.
Owls are pretty smart, but they don't know the future. That kind of makes sense because, like, condors have a big wingspan. They have a tail, and they usually smell because they eat dead things. But, like, they were talking about something bigger than a condor. Some said it was a giant snake, which makes even less sense. Also kind of scary, though.
I'm not going to disregard that as not scary. That's scary, but also
even if it is just a giant snake. Not going there. Some do say that something is still living somewhere near the eastern end of the lake. But the problem with that is that Elizabeth Lake, it got that name, by the way, because one time a girl named Elizabeth fell into it and everyone made fun of her and it just stuck. That's how it got the name Elizabeth Lake.
You're kidding.
Nope, that's Elizabeth Lake.
Was it Queen Elizabeth?
Oh yeah. The person making fun of her was George Washington. The thing with Elizabeth Lake, though, it's really not that deep of a lake. It's only about 20 feet deep in the middle, and it often dries up completely, and there haven't been any devil's pets found in there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it never happened, because the story actually does not end with Leonis. I'm going to have to dip out of Ellie Meekley jurisdiction just to wrap this one up.
Don't do it.
I have to.
Don't.
Here, stamp my passport.
Okay.
They say that after Leonis curb stomped the devil's pet, it healed up for a few days and then took off for a new home. Coincidentally, around this time, there was an incident just west of Tombstone, Arizona. In early 1890, two ranchers were walking through their land and found what they described as a huge alligator with a long tail and wings collapsed and exhausted on the ground. And being people from Arizona, of course, their first reaction was to shoot at it.
Yeah, we better make jerky of this.
Yeah, take your mask off and let's shoot you. The bullets didn't do anything, of course, but it turned and charged at them, but it was so tired it couldn't reach them before they just kept firing more and more bullets until it finally collapsed dead. They examined the body and measured it at 92 feet long, 78 foot long wings, 4 feet wide, an 8 foot long head with sharp teeth and giant bulging eyes as big as dinner plates.
Wow.
On April 26, 1890, a story ran in the local newspaper about this, of what is now known as the infamous Thunderbird photograph. You can look this up.
Okay.
The picture was supposedly of the ranchers and some other men standing under this creature pinned to the side of a barn. It's infamous because, one, it was a picture of a bunch of men standing under a dead monster, but two, there's also no proof that such a picture ever actually existed. The story definitely was in the Tombstone epitaph, but even though some people swear that they saw this picture, in the records there was never any picture accompanying this story.
Okay.
So there's some pictures that circulate out there of this, but those are all fakes that were made after 1963 when a guy started pushing the conspiracy theory of this story. But again, what the hell happened west of Tombstone, Arizona? Like, what's going on? The area was struggling for money at the time, but there was no chamber of commerce or anything like that that would be pushing these tall tales to, like, come see the alligator monster that we shot. And even if it was that, only one of the two town papers ran the story, and then there was never any follow-up. So it wasn't like, come on, the monster's here. So whatever actually happened there and in Elizabeth Lake is now the stuff of urban legends, but try telling yourself that next time you're driving home late at night after having trampled all over the fresh poppy fields that are right over there.